Hi, I'm Raylyn Worcester, and this is Spreading the Word. That's word with a capital W, as in the written word, the Bible, and the Word made flesh, Jesus Christ. So I am fixing to read to you from the bigger picture. We are now focusing on life in the United States of America and how our country got the way it is and where it's headed. And so we've recently just talked about education, about the indoctrination of our children and the plans and what's really happening with higher education. Now we're going to talk about corporate America, the rat race, the corporate jungle. Corporations of today no longer bear any resemblance to the philanthropic entity our forefathers created. Today's corporations, by and large, are founded on usury. They have a structure whereby the majority do all the work for very little pay and with very little chance of ever rising to the top, while the CEO does very little but becomes rich off the labor of those below him. Usury funnels all the wealth to the top and leaves the majority as slaves to the system. We're going to take a look at what corporations were intended to be and the route they took to becoming what they are today. I'm going to put up a little graphic for you to refer to while we're talking about this. And if you would, just pause the video on it and snap a picture of it with your phone so that you've got it to look at while we are discussing this topic. So here is the graphic. So you'll see, and I'm sorry that it's backwards, but you'll see at the very top of this triangle is the CEO. Underneath him is the president, then the vice president, then middle management, then team leaders and supervisors, and at the very bottom are the hardworking employees who do the majority of all the work, make the very least, and have very little possibility of rising to the top. And then underneath it says, "No thanks, looks like a pyramid scheme." And that is the way corporate America is structured. The economy of the United States of America was originally designed to be a free enterprise system. This meant that anyone could use their skills and labor to start a small business for profit without government regulation. You could start a business baking pies, and you determined how many, what kind, when to bake, and what to charge. The money you made in excess of what you spent to make the pies would be your profit, and from that you would make a living. In the beginning, there were no corporations, just small businesses. Some businesses, however, were service-based. If you wanted to run a water system to supply water to your community, you were doing the community a service. In exchange for the service to the community, the government decided to grant these businesses limited liability. So if they made a mistake, the business owners would not be unduly harmed or personally damaged because they were being benevolent. They would become a limited liability corporation, or LLC. In this way, one could not be personally sued for a mistake made while being benevolent. The corporation could be sued, but the owner, who now worked for the corporation, could not. All corporations at this time were given a 20-year charter in which to operate, like the banks. It was automatically canceled after 20 years and could be renewed if the business was still proven to be nonprofit. During the charter, these businesses were required to maintain open accounting books, which could be scrutinized for verification of nonprofit operation. For 100 years after the American Revolution, legislators maintained tight control of the corporate chartering process. Because of widespread public opposition, earlier legislators granted very few corporate charters, and only after debate. Over several decades, starting in 1844, 19 states amended their constitutions to make corporate charters subject to alteration or revocation by their legislatures. Contests over charter were battles to control labor, resources, community rights, and political sovereignty. More and more frequently, corporations were abusing their charters to become conglomerates and trusts. They converted the nation's resources and treasures into private fortunes, creating factory systems and company towns. Political power began flowing to absentee owners rather than community-rooted enterprises. All of that is a quote from Taking Care of Business, Citizenship, and the Charter of Incorporation by Richard L. Grossman and Frank T. Adams, published by POCLAD. So, those were not my words. That's a quote. Okay. Corporations were no longer nonprofit entities, but became quasi-government entities. To get favors, tax breaks, and protections a corporation offered, business became regulated by the government and had to follow their guidelines. The small pie shop now would be told what hours they could operate, what kind of pies to bake, and how much to sell them for. We see a prime example of this during the Great Depression. Prices collapsed and corporations suffered from a lack of profit. To remedy this, the government told farmers to plow under their corn, to limit supply, so prices would rise and tax revenue would roll in again. People starved to death during the Great Depression as crops were destroyed to preserve profit and taxes. Now, fast forward to corporate America today. Government regulation is now controlled by the very corporations they were supposed to regulate, and that regulation now forces out small businesses, limiting the competition of corporations. According to Forbes, and keep in mind, this was in 2005. According to Forbes, 8 out of 10 small businesses fail. Not only is the corporation itself built upon a satanic usurious system, with the CEO living large off the labor of the hourly employee, but greed, lust, and sloth have led to high levels of corruption. A few that made headlines include Jeffrey Skilling, who served as president, COO, and CEO of Enron, along with the staff he assembled who hid billions of dollars of debt through poor financial reporting, accounting loopholes, and the use of special purpose entities. There was CEO Bernard Ebbers, who resigned from WorldCom in April of 2002 and was sentenced to 25 years in prison for conspiracy and securities fraud and filing false statements with securities regulators. Then there was Tyco CEO Dennis Kozlowski, along with former CFO Mark Swartz, who stole more than $150 million from the company, including $2 million that was used for a birthday party for Kozlowski's wife that was thrown in Saudi Arabia. In Sardinia. And these are just the ones we hear about. Is all of this the natural progression when society leaves off following the blueprint for a prosperous life to follow their own animal instincts? In part, but I believe it's more than that. I believe America's CEOs have been indoctrinated and carefully groomed to become who they are today. Consider the following article from the February 19th, 2013 edition of the New York Times. The college degree is becoming the new high school diploma, the new minimum requirement, albeit an expensive one, for getting even the lowest level job. Economists have referred to this phenomenon as degree inflation, and it has been steadily infiltrating America's job market. This up-credentialing is pushing the less educated further down the food chain, and it helps explain why the unemployment rate for workers with no more than a high school diploma is more than twice that for workers with a bachelor's degree. 8.1% versus 3.7%. In 2012, 39% of job postings for secretaries and administrative assistants in the Atlanta metro area requested a bachelor's degree, up from 28% in 2007. According to Burning Glass, a company that analyzes job ads from more than 20,000 online resources, including major job boards and small to mid-size employer sites. College graduates are just more career-oriented, said Adam Slipikoff, the managing partner of the Bush, Slipikoff & Shue law firm in Atlanta. Going to college means that they are making a real commitment to their futures. They're not just looking for a paycheck. If college degrees are being required for entry-level positions in today's corporations, what does it take to become CEO? What exactly is being taught at those higher levels of education to prepare one to run a company which operates on a satanic system and perpetuates greed and corruption? Check out our article entitled Higher Education to find out. Corporate America is out of control. It's not too late to escape the rat race. It's time to scrap the current plans and go back to the drawing board, back to the basics, back to the blueprint for a prosperous life. It's time we reclaimed our lives and became who we were destined to be, instead of who others are grooming us to be. Jesus said in John 10:10, I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. The abundant life is not found in the corporate jungle. It's found in the garden. So true. How many of you have left the corporate rat race because it's just too cutthroat? Because there seems to be no fairness, no equity, and it's every man for himself. You know, this bigger picture just points out the truths that we all see and experience every day, but sometimes are just afraid to speak out about because it's not popular and it could land us in some trouble. Well, I, for one, and my brother, who helped me write this, are not afraid of the trouble we might land in for opening the eyes of the blind. If you know people who need to hear what we are talking about, please share the bigger picture with them. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and help us spread the word. Thank you. God bless.